And you're good.
Oh, now we're coming back into regular session from executive session for recess.
All right, so joining us this evening is Dr. Amy Jackson, our new director of, well, not new anymore, she's been here a month, but still new.
I'll take it.
2 months and a half almost. Yeah. So we're here today because we want to walk you through the curriculum adoption process that we have in front of us, and she's going to just talk through where we are and a couple of the instructional areas that we're focusing on from that perspective.
Okay, well then I'll take it away. Good evening, members of the board. So I'm here to talk about the instructional materials curriculum adoption process. And I just want to verify, does everybody have the slides in front of them? We're going through them.
I wasn't able to download them earlier today.
Oh, you weren't? Okay.
There's just a couple things I want to make sure that you get eyes on.
Let me, hold on, let me go to that document.
Is it possible to put those slides up on the screen, Emily?
I can try. That'd be great. And I'll keep going, but we can certainly refer back and go forward and backwards as we go. So the materials adoption process is dictated by Oregon Department of Ed's Division 22. And on this second slide, one of the reasons that I want you to make sure that you have access to the slides, I put a link to what ODE has for us that pretty much dictates our process. It talks about what we need to do to be in compliance and all the different procedures that are necessary for taking care of things. So that link document will inform our process. The next slide that I have is a schedule, state schedule. There are basically 7 major adoption areas, and they are on a 7-year cycle. And so we're in the middle of that cycle. And what is great news is that we have adopted and purchased math. And it is implemented, and that's fantastic. And that was part of the adoption cycle. What is less than optimum is that we adopted it in the very last possible moment. And when we look at the full schedule, we see that science, health, and social sciences are all, well, science and health are overdue, and social sciences is due to be done this year. It's very, very challenging to do 3 areas at once, but we very much want to catch up. So what we're looking at is a process that will give us a opportunity to get on the road to catching up. So what I am here to kind of talk to you guys about is the fact that we are beginning the process as of now. And the way that our policy works, oh, fantastic, it's up there. Although Prime Video is very tempting right now too. So you'll see this is the first slide that I was referring to, the Division 22 requirements related to instructional materials. You're welcome to click on that. You're welcome to ignore it, but that is really the guidance document that we'll be following. Go ahead to the next couple of slides. This is the state schedule that I was referring to. And if you click again, Emily, I've got an arrow that points to math. And then if you click again, you'll see the science, social studies, and health. You might have to click a couple times because I tend to get carried away with the animations. So you'll see those 3 and the dates on them. The state adoption for science was due to be in classrooms in fall of 2024, health in the fall of 2025, and social sciences in the fall of 2026. So if we did social sciences this year, we would be right on target. It's health and science that we're a little bit concerned about. So go ahead to that next slide, and then we're all caught up. So what's happening right now is our school administrators are gathering information from teachers. We've got a survey that administrators are communicating with us around the degree of need in those areas and the status of the current materials. Is what we have up to date or out of date? Social sciences in particular, we know is likely to be out of date because the state adopted brand new social sciences standards in summer 2024. And they've got materials selected for us to choose from, which is again, part of that whole process. The state chooses a bunch of stuff. They say, we like this stuff. You can pick any of them that you want, and we will not arbitrarily pick. We will go through a process. So the next slide starts to talk about our process. 1 month before we convene a committee, we make an adoption announcement at the board, which is happening right now. We're announcing, we're going to go through the process. We'll overview the process for you here, and then we will put out a public notice for all stakeholders, community members, to suggest materials and to let us know if they're interested in participating in any way on our committees.
This is for K-12 or?
This is K-12.
Okay.
K-12, 3 content areas. It's a pretty tall order.
Yeah.
What we've done is put together 3 different flyers, one for each of those curricular areas, and they look very similar. By January 24th is when we want to have this information solicited. So that's about 5 weeks from now, but accounting for winter break, I thought that was more fair than a simple month. There's a yellow button toward the bottom of each one of those flyers that says for more information. And clicking that button in the flyer, I wouldn't do that now, but it'll take you to the ODE page about that curricular area. And it'll tell you what the standards are. It'll tell you what materials the state likes. So that gives anybody who clicks that yellow button a view of what ODE is thinking about. And then in the lower, I think that's right-hand corner of each of those, the little colorful button that says something like, let us know something. It clicks to a link to get to a survey. And what a community member could do is click on that link, and the button says, use this form to let us know. And it'll open up a survey that says, do you know of any good materials or anything that you'd like us to look at? Tell us the publisher and the year, tell us why you like it, and also let us know if you'd like to be on the committee. And a community member could fill that out and say, oh my gosh, my brother-in-law wrote this fabulous stuff and you've got to look at it. And that kind of thing actually happens and can give us some really good ideas that we would not ordinarily have looked at. So we have about a month to gather that information. This is the process we'll use to do that. Those flyers will go up on Parent Square, I think, in the near future, and also our schools will put it out in their school newsletters. So we're going to solicit some information that way. Then we move on to the next step. Step 2 will be to convene the committees. Committee members will be solicited to review subject area curricular standards and criteria. We'll do a study of the materials that the community has suggested based on what we just looked at with those flyers, and we'll engage in consideration of renewal. We will look at, is what we have now meeting our needs, and why or why not? And then what are our needs going forward? This is very likely to look like we will have 3 separate committees that convene to do this conversation. And from there, we'll find out how high is our mountain to climb for this year.
Can I ask one quick question? I'm just trying to imagine how this works, because won't dual immersion be about in 3rd grade by next year or this year?
Next year.
So how do we do dual immersion with these new?
That's part of the criteria that we will look at. So when we start thinking about, do we have what we need? The TWE program will say, well, no, because I think we're in 3rd grade this year. It's 4th grade.
Year, okay.
4th grade next year, and 4th grade will say, well, no, we don't have science materials in Spanish.
Yeah,
and
because
that
for
will,
sure I knew that the older grades would have that stuff.
and it may be kind of like with Benchmark, we have materials that are adopted. There is a Spanish version. We just need to make sure that we purchase the next piece.
Okay.
So that will be part of that consideration, the needs assessment, of course. The second step, or the 3rd step, which you see happening in February, is I will collect all the materials, which is super fun because packages every day. We'll contact all the publishers and say, we're shopping, send us what you got. And while the materials are on their way, we'll get the committee together and we'll do a training that looks at the standards really carefully and starts to create rubrics. So we'll look at making sure that whatever we're choosing matches the standards and then also meets our preferences, because different staff have different ideas about what's going to work the best, and we want to hear from them about what that is. So we'll create some scoring guides for that. Step 4 is we'll compare the materials to the scoring guides and we'll score them all and determine what the piloting need is, or what is the need. We're just going to continuously ask that question. What is the need and why is that the need?
And I would say that, just an example, when we did the math, or when we paused on the math, we still had a group because we wanted to do some, all right, do we need to tweak, or as we look at implementation, So as an example, before everybody jumped into math this year, last year, we had a fourth grade group that implemented part of that math to really give us a breadth of, hey, what are gonna be the needs overall that we think we're gonna have? So that was really helpful. So I think some of those pieces could come into play also as part of that process.
Absolutely, and that kind of in the step 4 and 5 scenarios where we're working with the committee around the rubrics, like what is it, does it meet the standards? Does it meet our needs? But also, what does it take to implement it? What kind of professional development will we need? What kind of ongoing budgeting support or other support will we need? And so that all will play a part in these conversations that we will have in this process. This 5th step will be the committee will make a recommendation to the cabinet. The cabinet will either send it back or send it up. And then the next step will be revision or continuing to send it up, where the recommendation will come back to you. That will come to you also with materials being available. Materials that become the favorite will be on display and will be.
Could I sit here?
Certainly.
Thank you.
Will be the ones that we like will be the ones that will be on display, and people come in, they can say, oh, we really like these, or oh, you missed something. And then we can take that into consideration as well. And then lastly, you get to rule on our recommendations. So that's the process we will be undertaking starting in January. And like I said, there's a lot of room for flexibility and adapting as we go through, because it's a tall order this year, and we do want to get back on track, but we also want to make something that's realistic for us all.
So the schedule that you showed at the beginning, like there's not a penalty or something if you're off track. It's just that it's better for our students if you're on track.
Mhm.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
Yeah.
Because that, again, as we go to correct, and that's part of the reason we're putting this in front of you. I think also the work that Amy and Julie in working with the building principals, and then how that is disseminated to our teaching staff. Right, again, that's some of the hard conversations. It's the honest piece of, is what we have good? Because again, if we have a certain area where we're gonna need to spend some more money, that's gonna have to be part of our budgeting process. And then again, as I've shared with you all, a lot of our PD comes out of our federal grants. So again, I think there's some pieces that we're just gonna have to continue to look at as we move through the year and then go into our budgeting process, knowing that, you know, looking at this and what can we possibly use, and that's great, and we can keep using that, or where do we need to make some moves. Again, I, as Dr. Jackson said, social sciences is we're gonna have to take a look at. I'll just say that generally, because there has been some changes in that area.
So you mentioned a survey that went out to teachers.
It went out to principals were asked to have conversations with the teachers,
got it.
and then use the survey to report back on those conversations.
Any other questions tied to process? Because again, your first step, and then we're jumping and we're moving.
I mean, do we even have a rough idea what 3 curriculums would cost? Like, that's the thing that's like, I can't even imagine how.
Yeah,
we have
that's
that money.
That's a hole I'm not so willing to step into yet, because it depends.
I just know math was 300 grand.
Right. So much of it depends. When my prior district was about 3 times bigger than this, and we kind of always had a running gag that it was like $1 million. Every time you choose something that's a curricular thing, it's $1 million for a district of about 10,000 students. That was also a handful of years ago. You know,
Right.
There's inflation and there's crazy materials. There are also decisions that get made that suit your local context, and that could very well be, we've got some really spectacular resources built into Benchmark, and maybe we just want to supplement some of the Benchmark units that are already science-based or social studies-based with some additional materials, and not do a full-blown everything. But again, until we really roll up our sleeves with teachers, those aren't decisions that we're going to make without that kind of
Right.
input.
Right.
And then the end goal, the dollar piece, is always going to be a consideration, and we'll look at that as responsibly and as realistically as we possibly can.
And as an example, right, there are open sources, right? That's part of the Oregon Department of Ed process. So, you know, they could look at an open source and say, hey, again, this is what Benchmark has. If we were to use this open source with this, then there could be some cost savings. I'm not saying that that's what it would be. I want to be clear about that. But I think that's what the committee is going to do for all of these processes. I also don't know that we need to. I think there's a couple of the that are up that we could probably be okay with for the next couple of years. So again, that's the committee's choice, and they'll look at that. That'll be the hard conversations, but there is potentially some of those pathways as well. So it may not be every single one of them. And then having that conversation financially of where we go, because that will be part of that committee's response. I mean,
Yeah.
we will have to be upfront with understanding the budget concerns that are happening both at the state and the federal level, right? That will be a general conversation with them, I know will take place. So they'll be part of that conversation as well.
And there's potential for cherry picking, you know, in one of the processes that I ran, we did a full social studies adoption and we had to tier it for our budget. And then we had to tier it down even further. And then we made a stand and said, you have to buy us economics books. We cannot continue going on with economics books that are 20 years old. And so we will be working with teachers and listening to what the need is, as well as what the standards say and what we have on hand. So we'll just cross our fingers that it's not the most painful thing we've ever done. But it'll be good. It's an exciting process. So I'm glad to be doing it. We'll see what I say in May. But there you go. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Just in the board, looking forward to it being coordinating curriculums too, so we can help that whole elementary, middle school, high school.
Absolutely. That's why I will convene committees that are K-12 to begin with. We will look at the standard alignment. Yeah, it needs to be articulated for sure.
And we recently hired at WU an OER librarian specialist, so those open ed resources, and I don't know if like that's a connection.
Yeah, potentially for a committee even.
Yeah, because there's so many, OER has been so beefed up in the last few years. Okay.
Yeah, and Oregon Department of Ed has physical materials, physical copies of all of the materials that they've approved, and they are housed at the library at Western. And so I've been thinking that's one of the first things I want to do in January is to take a tour and see what they have, because honestly, that'd be a lot more fun than getting packages delivered to me. So
We'll have to introduce you.
I would love that. Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you for your time.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Absolutely. I will.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we have 10 minutes before we're going to go to budget committee. So I want to shift a little bit because we do have on the agenda. I just want to talk a little bit before we go into budget committee about where is it at? The accountability and the district goals. So this is what Emily put in front of you. So we are in the midst of starting to move forward with community chats. And so we have built a short presentation that we've been using as we go out to different community members. In that is our mission statement. We give a little bit of demographics, so our overall enrollment, and I'm going to get to that document that you have in a second here, but just for the community, right, some key things, how many staff we have, a breakdown of how many percentages of English learners, how much students with disabilities we have, et cetera. As I've shared with you all before, we give them the scorecard. So really a one pager about our district strategic plan. Some of the things that we're walking them through is a little bit of focus on attendance, because that has been, so really talking with the community about the importance of attendance in schools. And then, just some key things that are why attendance is important. We have a link on there that goes to the website for things for parents to do when it comes to attendance, et cetera. And so then we talk a little bit about our metrics, that we have our metric goals. So we give them a couple data points of specifically attendance. But then we get down into really, as I've shared with you all, we have this new accountability system coming in, Senate Bill 141. And then again, a lot of this, when I originally started the strategic plan, saw the writing on the wall that this was going to come. So first is, we are eons ahead. We already have accountability, and we've been doing it for now 3 or 4 years with attendance. We now have gotten discipline, so this is our first year really looking at discipline, but we have 2 years of it. We have done third grade language arts for, I don't know, 5 years now. Really consistently since we came out of COVID. And then we've done cohorts of both our state assessments as well as the universal screeners in reading and math. We give you on-time graduation, 5-year completers, right? So those are all metrics that are going to be tied to this new accountability. There is going to be a local metric, and that's going to be part of the conversation. But one of the things that, as we've gone through this and talking to a couple groups so far, is I think there's 2 pieces. One is, as an example, so the last couple of years I have had, as a district, we are required to set a regular attendance with the state. So we have our district goal. We want everyone to be at school 85% of the time, regular attendance. That means they're in their seats 90% of the time for 85% of our days, right? Does that make sense what I'm saying from there? But when we set our state goals with our state Oregon Department of Ed, they're very clear that if you don't make the metric, especially moving forward, there could be consequences. So what we are trying to do is now, again, as we go out to the community, talk through, here's our big end goal, right? So here's where we want to be in 2027, because that's really what we set forth with that. But because of some of the accountability, we want to sort of talk about, here's some steps overall with all of our students, and then our focal groups of some short term to get to the long term, which is our strategic goal. So you will see in front of you a little bit of a different version when it comes to how we might present this overall when it comes to, again, meeting the state requirement tied to Senate Bill 141, but then also honoring the work that's been done by community, by our staff, by our kids of here's what we want aspirationally in the long run. So I would say potentially our strategic plan will turn into short terms every few years to get to our long-term goals. So again, I'm just going to go through attendance. So you see here as an example, our attendance for 24-25 was 63%. Our goal set was 70 for all of our students. For our focal groups, again, it was 56, and our goal was 65. And then again, you see our end goal, which is really 85% overall on the far right, and then 80% for our focal groups. So again, this would just be a little bit of a different look, and that way we can capture all of the state accountability, because that will be our short term, while still holding us accountable to the long-term metric. Because I, as the superintendent of this school district, cannot go out to our community and say, your attendance at 65% is good. That's not good. It's not going to get us where students need to be academically, socially, and behaviorally. We really need students in attendance 85% or higher within our district. So it's sort of capturing both of those to be able to do that. We will also need to pick a local metric. And so one of the things that's coming up to that, what we're hearing, and this is still with the State Board of Education. So we'll have the ones that we already have: attendance, discipline, ninth grade on track, which we show you twice a year, graduation rates, completer rates, and then we will bring in 8th grade math. Again, we're already doing 8th grade because we do 8th grade cohort language arts and 8th grade cohort math. So we already have that. So those will be the 6. The one new sort of caveat to attendance is we have to do K-12 attendance, but then we will start to give you a K-2 attendance. So that's a little bit of a nuance different there. So you're going to get, here's our overall K-12, and then we'll start to give you a K-2 because that's part of the requirement. The local metrics, which we will have to pick one, again, a lot of these are already in our strategic plan. So one of those is 5th grade science. We do not have that in our strategic plan. We do have achievement growth. So our universal screeners that we show you 3 times a year, the overall growth, how kids are moving from fall to winter to spring, and then maybe looking back at that. That is one of the options. However, the state may force us into a specific type of universal screener. I will tell you, I've been very vocal in that if they force us into that, there's gonna need to be some time if, let's say they don't choose a universal screener that we are using, we need some time to be able to move and shift that if we choose that. The other one is career and CTE. So we are in the midst right now, because of our what we are doing with the high school success grant. We will have data, our data team is working on that right now. How many for the last 3 years, what do we have in CTE? So overall student participation, as well as how many students in our AP and honors classes. So we will start to bring that to the board here after the first part of the year. Once we go through that process with the state, then we will start to bring those data points to you. So that's a potential one that we would look at. Multilingual proficiency, again, we do this with you already, ELPA, we give that to you at the end of the year and usually at the beginning of the year. They were also looking at that, how many students earn the seal of biliteracy, which we present to you every year at the end of the school year of how many students have accessed that. So again, I just want to know, because this is new, right? I want to honor the strategic plan, but we have to take into account, I guess, is there any concerns of this type of approach? And then we're going to figure out how we make it simple in the long run from that perspective. But really, this would be a little bit of a shift because it's going to be sort of short-term state identified to our long-term strategic plan. So we meet both criteria. Again, what we've built, because that's important, it's about us, but there's also going to be pieces that we are going to be required to meet for the state. So I just sort of want to give that update to you all, just knowing as we go out to the community, this is some of the conversations that we're going to have with them to say, you know, does this feel good enough? We're meeting both sides of that. But again, honoring our strategic plan, and then if there's any shifts that we need to do in the strategic plan. So they're high first level draft of this, because we've only met with a couple of community groups. And so this is just, and I'm very appreciative of the group that we met with. They were very upfront with us. They helped us get to this. And so I think as we go out, coming out of break to more of our community groups, I think it's going to be beneficial just to help us overall.
You know, in terms of research procedures, having the focal groups is nothing short of brilliant.
Yeah.
I mean, you just can't gather data over a period of time without looking to see what's happening.
Yep.
Until it's all over.
Yep.
Unless you're doing something with tadpoles or something. But you know, I really like this.
Yeah.
This is really, really good research protocol.
Yeah. And again, I think it's even before this started, we went out to the community, to our staff, to our kids and said, what is important to you, right? Many of the things, attendance, discipline, graduation, 9th grade on track, right? A lot of those came out from the little sticky notes back in the day for those that were a part of that. Again, I always think we need to check our strategic plan, but then really just how do we now embrace that new Senate bill coming in as well?
So these are just the state mandated ones?
Correct.
No.
These are all of our, so the state mandated is attendance, 9th grade on track, 5-year completer,
Okay.
4-year
So these are
graduation. This is
both
all,
ours and
this is
also
our
the state
strategic plan and the state.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I knew there was some extra ones in
Yes.
here that I didn't remember.
Because state doesn't do
before.
suspension.
Right,
State doesn't do 6th grade reading. They only want 8th grade math. Some of these we're going to continue to do some of these because it's the bigger picture that we're trying to make sure our community, and then we're tracking the success of our kids. So again, first draft, this is not final. We just wanted to put it in front of you to say, hey, here's some of the shifts that we're making because of this new Senate bill coming through, which is still a lot of work in progress. There's been a lot of pausing. They were supposed to announce potentially what the universal screeners would be. Potentially, they've gone out for an RFP. We were supposed to get that December 14th, or no, excuse me, December 3rd. It was 2 Fridays ago, whatever day that was. We didn't get it. They're pausing that till January, so. So we'll bring this back to you once we go back, but I wanted to at least give you, we've had some feedback, we wanted to put it in front of you before we go back out to the community in January and February. And then we'll go to our staff as well during that time.
It's really great.
Okay. All right. Budget committee, come on in and join us. Grab a chair.
We apologize to them for
Yeah,
not
sorry.
having food.
We have
We've been here for a while.
Do anybody need a break? Real quick, we're gonna go grab a quick break, board members, and then we'll convene.
Here, 4 minutes.
Yep.
For some reason, I thought there was more than just 9th grade on track for 4 years.
They were all set.
Okay, perfect.
Copies.
Oh, that's right.
Emily, did you grab the copies off of Paula's desk of the,
No, Bill, did you need me to?
well, I didn't see them in there, so.
No, I will go and look for them.
Oh. I'm gonna open this right now. Thank you, Cece. Hi, all, good to see everybody.
No, and we're not immediately, but I just have a question to ask. And what is our enrollment compared to last year right now? How much up is it? How much down is it? Because that has a lot to do with the budget.
So the last time we pulled enrollment, and I have not done it, we were at 2948. Our amount that we, and Cece may talk to this, our amount for the state is 2950.
29 what?
50.
50, okay. So what was last year? I have no idea.
So that's a point in time that we take it.
I-
So last year, we at one point were a little bit under, I think when we took this data, we were 2969 at the end of the year. I think at the beginning of the year, we may have been closer to 3,000, maybe a little bit less, 2983. Which is expected. Our enrollment from the, just overall birth rates and with what we've done even with Flow Analytics, this is what they shared with us, that our enrollment would be going down for several years.
Well,
Elementary's up and middle school and high school are down.
was our biggest, it was a big increase this year in first and kindergarten.
I'll be honest, we've had an increase in our kindergarten. Our kindergartens have been small. I was trying to pull up our
Yeah, it was
attendance.
down quite a bit last year.
Yeah, it's been down the last couple of years, so it was more comparable to what prior history had been, except for the last couple of years, so.
Well, this is a question I'm asking, because that has to do with budget. I mean, a lot
Oh,
of
yeah.
stuff you're talking
Yes.
here does not have to do with, I mean, it costs money to do it, but that's kind of built in different category stuff. So I'm just asking questions, what has to do with the budget, that's what I'm here.
Yep,
I mean, we don't have policy making, everything else, all we have to do with it, we're here just for the budget.
That's because we were wrapping up another meeting.
Yeah, I know, but I wasn't interfering in that. But this is stuff that
Okay.
I wanted to ask
Mhm.
prior to the
I was like,
the
if it was
budget.
because you came into that,
No.
that was another meeting that we were
That was none of
wrapping
my
up.
business.
Okay. You were wanted, just they're separate.
Yeah, separate. And can I throw 2 more cents in while I'm at it? We haven't started the meeting. But you know, we go out to the public, so when you're gonna go out for the public, and this is what the meeting we're talking, but also refers to us back. How do you go to the public?
Pardon me,
How do you go to the public to get your input?
on these things that
Yeah,
she's
no, on
talking?
the things that she was just talking about.
we
because-
have different, so we have a couple different things. We go to specific groups, so as an example, I'll go to faith-based groups, we'll go to business groups.
Yep.
But then we also have just open meetings that we will post So anybody can come in and join. We'll also go to buildings particularly and open up, we'll show up at Ash Creek and say anybody can come anywhere in the district, or Ash Creek families, anybody that's interested. So we'll do different sites across the district, but then we have specific
Okay,
groups
well, I
that
just
we
asked,
reach
in the
out to.
last 2 years, I've been to some of those meetings, Jim, you had, and listen, and then the turnout has been not real good for the people that we have in
Yeah.
the district. I mean, are we hitting the core? No. I mean, I must tell you, you're not hitting the core people that really vote or make the decisions or pay the
Oh, I
bills.
think we get survey data that helps in some of those decision making as
Yeah, I
well.
think now with, the way we're connecting with different stakeholders via electronically, through different kinds of.
Yeah, some of the
systems or
survey stuff.
The survey stuff, we're getting really good information.
I
on
think
that.
we're much better from
There's
that.
not many people participating, period, with
Period,
anything.
with anything.
Yeah.
I will say though, anecdotally, as part of the PTA at Ash Creek, so really, really tiny slice. 3 years ago, I came into my first PTA meeting and I walked away with the board position because there was only 3 of us who showed up. This year, at the beginning of the year, there were 26 people at our first PTA meeting.
Wow.
Yeah. So
That's
anecdotally, a large portion of those parents were kinder parents, because we've seen an increase in those kinder numbers. And we also have seen sustaining, so not just like a huge first meeting. We haven't seen quite that many, obviously, we expect that, but we have seen quite a few more volunteers and quite a bit more engagement. Again, this is totally anecdotal. I'm not claiming this is just across the board, but it made me super excited as a parent who is engaged to see that maybe we're seeing some recovery from that engagement perspective post-COVID.
That's not high school.
No, that's true. I will say though, at the middle school this year, cross-country, volleyball, they had to shut down sports. They're talking about trying to figure out how to get another volunteer for cross-country. They shut down cross-country. They had too many kids for cross-country. Can we just, that's a great, what? More than enough kids wanted to run,
Usually
like,
take all the kids who show up.
yeah, there's, yeah, that is.
They don't need
They had
equipment.
to, they had to say no to some kids who wanted to run. What? That's so crazy. So like, I mean, I'm not, again, not claiming, but it does feel like maybe there's a bit of like a bubble coming up through elementary that maybe is not quite at the high school yet. But that there is a bit of like this recovery again, post-COVID, where we're seeing re-engagement from parents, re-engagement from kids.
That's great.
I may be making some of this up in my head for what I hope and want it to be, so, no science to prove any of this other than my own experience, but
But that's really neat.
yeah, I'm hoping it's true, I'm hoping it's true.
Well, that's really neat to see just, the number increase. I
Yeah.
mean, that's an obvious concrete.
Yeah, the PTA number for sure
Yeah.
is super, really exciting. Again, that's only Ash Creek, I only have that sliver, so I don't know what IDS and MES are.
And how do we
experiencing,
keep those parents motivated to want to continue to be engaged as their child is moving up through the.
but yes, 100%, yeah, for sure.
So I actually thought we would actually start with introductions because we have 2 board members who joined the board after we finished our budget process. And I'm not sure if they know those of us on the budget committee, and I'm not sure you know them, so.
I'll start. So my name is Pete Swan and I have chaired the budget committee for, I don't know, 3, 4 years, something like that. So yeah, just on the budget committee.
I'm Jan Job and I'm a school board member.
My name is Irene Oliveros Vega, and I am one of the newly elected school board members. I am a Independence Elementary alum, a Henry Hill alum, a TMS alum, and a Central High School alum. So I grew up in fact, quick story, I was just telling my daughter that this used to be the cafeteria. And every holiday, right before winter break, our music teacher, Mrs. Wynn, would have her piano in here and all of us would do Christmas caroling. And that was my favorite part of the year, and to think that all the kids could fit in this room. It's crazy. So, yeah, anyways, I love it.
I'm Melanie Lemonhaze and I'm a school board member.
I'm Nicole Walker-Sunby, and I am just a budget committee, there's a word for it, because I'm not even a permanent one, just a template. Interim, yeah,
You're duly appointed.
duly appointed, yes.
I'm Ann Devane and I'm a budget committee member from District 1. Is that in Independence?
Shannon Ball, budget committee member. I don't remember what district I'm from, maybe 2.
I'm Royal Johnson. I'm on the budget committee. I've been here this third year on the budget committee, and I've lived almost all my life with my kids going to all the schools here, graduating and everything. And I moved here in 1974. So I've seen changes and saw what happened, and I do have a finger or a pulse on the community, so.
Hi, my name is Antonio Martinez. I'm a budget committee member.
And CHS alum and.
CHS alum, TMS alum, IES alum.
Andrew Van Heeswick, school board member. I have lived in this community since the early 80s. I went to IES. I don't even graduated from Central. I skipped Telford, sorry.
I'm Susan Graham. I'm a school board member, and I'm also co-chair of the board school board.
Jen Kvista, superintendent.
Thanks. You'll all get to know each other well next spring, but.
Suze, can I just make a quick comment? Sure. So, sir, you said something at the beginning that you said, none of my business when we were talking. I think that if we're all here, everything is our business because we care about our kids in our community. And I know that it's volunteer time, and as a board member, I'm super grateful for your willingness and your motivation to want to be part of this. And I think we can't do what we do without you doing what you do. So thank you.
But what I would say, I'll go back to it. It wasn't that I don't care. We have nothing to do with that. We are budget
Oh, yeah.
members.
Oh, I understand
It's
that.
what we're trying to say. So do I want to get in the middle of that? No.
With your budget committee hat on, you didn't want to,
Your
but yeah,
budget
everyone in the
committee hat on.
community has
We appreciate it.
something to say.
And Royal is a well-read and well-informed budget committee member,
Yeah.
so he knows a little bit about what. I hope you had an opportunity to at least glance at the materials we sent out, and the copy of the same thing is in front of you. Nothing was added, even to the incomplete sentence that I left in the second paragraph, which my editor, Emily Menser, did not point out to me until today when it was too late to do anything. So I apologize, and that's like a huge.
But that's
So
about
when are
what
you gonna tell
but that's
us?
about what the federal grants is for us. It's
Yeah,
an incomplete
this is just how
sentence.
it feels these days.
So it's actually quite going well with
All
that
the
right now.
things.
Yeah, it actually does. So, we said we'd do updates, and I thought they would be a little sooner in the year, but things have continued to change. So we thought this will be a good time. We'll take a few minutes, update you, answer questions as we all buckle up to get ready for the next budget year. So first of all, just wanted, and Jen can do a lot of this, give you really that general overview of funding in general, because there have been changes since June. And some of them are detailed here, but if you want to just kind of talk about the general.
Yeah, I think just generally budget, I'm gonna talk through both what CES has here. One is, I think federal grants, as we have here, we did receive for this year. That budget process is taking place right now. This last week, we saw really 3 different versions: the president's version of the education bill, the Senate version, and the House version. I will tell you, the House version is not good. There's no funding, very, very little. And so there's been some big advocacy for the Senate's version. Some of the funds would be flat, which means a loss, but the Senate version, at least in our perspective, is much better. Even the president's version is better than what is in the House. So we have spent a fair amount of time advocating. We sent letters to all of the representatives and senators of Oregon, making it very clear to please continue to move forward. Just to give you an example, Title II, which is a federal fund, that is what pays for our professional development. We do not have a ton of money in state grants or the general fund to be able to do that. We've talked to you a long time. General fund is a lot of our staffing, 80% of that, probably higher now, with some of the things that we have going on in special education. So, as an example, before you all came in here, we're talking about curriculum adoption. That Title II funding, as an example, is a really important piece for us to continue the professional development that we do within that. So I know that the president is wanting to have the budget passed for the holiday. We'll see. I think there's a lot of work that still needs to be done, so I don't know that that will take place. I think it could be in that range or into the new year at some point from that perspective. So I do think there's advocacy that we'll continue to do at that level, because we do want the funding from the Senate bill is much better overall. I still think there will be some cuts that we'll have to look at, because I don't know that any of them are fully funded to what we currently have for this year. State, again, you can see there, we had some interesting things. So we actually had 2 summer grants. Literally the week before we started summer school, they cut it, which was hard for us. We had received the other grant that was a little over 450,000, but we had to make some choices and had to cut short. That was really hard because we did a lot of planning and prepping and having to make that shift, but we made it work. I will say we continue to advocate for the summer learning programming. That is a big portion. I'll be honest, I presented, again, Julie Heimland gave me a lot of data for that, but our kids that are in summer school actually increased 10% higher than our kids that are not. And we need that because we are targeting our summer school specifically with students. So we're going to continue to advocate for summer programming. Not much change in the student investment account from that perspective. We did have some movement in that. We've had some people that left, and so we did some different shuffling from that perspective and just made some smaller moves from that. High school success, again, not a little bit of a drop. The corporate activity tax actually has come in at a lower amount. So that continues. We continue to watch that. You'll see that in the economic revenue forecasts that have come out. You've seen that corporate activity tax, which affects both of those are a part of that piece. And then again, the early literacy, I will tell you, the early literacy grant we have, they also put out for a supplemental part of that for some tutoring. We went and applied for that. We did receive that. It's not a ton of money, but it's an extra almost $200,000 over a 2-year period focused on really K2 and high dosage tutoring, which is really small groups. So 1 staff to maybe no more than 3. So we're working on building that model. Probably that supplemental will go into our after school and summer learning as we look at that. Because again, we already have some of those systems in place at the building level on a daily basis. So that's a little bit about the state grants. If you're paying attention, there is some concern that the state grants, because of the way the taxes are decreasing. So we're going to have to pay attention to that. That could be detrimental to us. We've talked both with the board as well as our union leadership. There is a rainy day fund, an educational rainy day fund.
At the state.
At the state
here.
level, not at here, yes. It's about $1.2 billion. Just to give you an example, when COVID hit, that amount was about 800,000. The state used 400,000 for COVID. We are now back up to 1.2 billion. There's money sitting there. So I could see, depending on what takes place, there could be some advocacy from us to use some of that. So we'll not all of it, because if you all have watched the next 2 bienniums, especially with the impact of HR1 and Medicaid, there could be billion-dollar losses. So we need to be careful just how and when we might advocate for that type of funding. But it is there. So I think that's just an avenue that we will look at depending on what that looks like for state grants. General funds.
Yeah, the other thing about state funding, sort of in general, and you may have heard this in the news, the governor asked each state agency to submit some different budget cut scenarios. Those were submitted to the legislators during legislative days, and then we had a revenue forecast in November that wasn't quite as pessimistic. It's a little more optimistic. But those two factors will be considered at the special or the short session legislature, which begins February first, around the first of Feb, 2nd of February. There'll be another state revenue forecast, middle of February, and those things will inform what how the legislature reacts to these agency budget cut proposals. The Department of Education is a state agency. They have sort of two big things they consider their funding. One is the state school fund, the money we get directed. The other is all their non-state school fund stuff. Well, they have three, because in these grants are sort of another bucket. So they were very transparent. They did a lot of great communication with school districts about what they were going to offer the governor and the legislature as far as their cuts. And the order of priority, when the legislature gets to decide, was non-grant fund, non-state school fund. So all their other stuff. And they did cut a couple of other specific programs in their proposed cuts. And then they proposed some changes to these state grants, and their last resort was the state school fund. So they basically said, legislature, if you have to cut us, try to preserve as much of the state school fund as possible, which we appreciate, right? Some of those specialty programs, they just already kind of said off the top, we would let these go. Don't affect us. But that's another sort of how the news is tying into what we are looking at for the legislative session.
The other thing is, going back to what you said, Royal, we will look at, so we're constantly looking at enrollment. And so we at times can adjust that. So again, as I shared before, we estimated that we'd be at 2950 for the year. Again, I want to be clear, our enrollment goes up and down. We have kids moved and they come back, right? All of that happens throughout the year. That's why we're tracking that. We will again look in March-ish. Do we need to adjust that? Because again, that affects the rest of this year. So that's a process that we do throughout the year. There's a couple times that we can look at it. A lot of times at the beginning of the year, we don't adjust it because we tend to be higher, and then again, we'll go low and then come back up in the spring. That tends to be what our enrollment has done over the last couple of years. I think everyone's still losing enrollment across the state. It's not just central. I think everyone is down enrollment. Very few school districts are up in enrollment overall. And that's, again, whether you're talking private, charter, public, enrollment overall is down. And again, some of that's birth rates and different things across the state. So again, that's I would say high level for both state and federal grants and general fund that we're looking at.
I will mention one other thing, because again, it has been in the news. There is increased attention. Salem Kaiser is leading a charge about having the state look at the way they weight poverty. Because remember, we have our enrollment and our average daily membership, and then we have our weighted average daily membership, which includes extra money or extra weights for English language learners, teen, pregnant, parenting, and foster students, who are have IEPs, and poverty. And based on analyst at the Department of Education who became a whistleblower and said the state is not calculating poverty correctly. There are way better ways they could calculate poverty weights, and it is shortchanging schools. And so Salem Kaiser is taking a lead on trying to get the state to recognize that. Of course, changing the weight, meaning recognizing we have higher levels of poverty in districts, unless they increase the money, the same pot of money just goes out Okay, some get more and some get less, and all it does is shift the pie. It does not increase the pie available to support students in poverty. So, perhaps you could go our way, and likely to go our way, and disadvantage other districts where we would be advantaged if those changes are made. But that's something else you want to pay attention to, because it is a, something that will potentially be considered in the future.
So that's generally I would say, big picture of the big buckets, as I like to say.
I read something last week, I'm gonna get the acronym wrong, SR something, SRA, SRS, is something in schools, was paid backwards, and then they're paying it again this year. It just got announced last week, but I don't know what that, okay.
I don't know.
look it back up.
We'll follow up on that. Yeah,
SR
just send that our way.
I'll find it.
Okay.
SR some, school, resource.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I'll find out that.
Yeah.
okay. Federal is the
It's
federal
federal.
forest fee. It's the rural schools.
Oh, the rural, yes.
Oh, yeah,
The
that
rural
was-
schools,
yes,
yes,
yeah,
yes,
rural
yes,
schools.
yes. So that, we are not in
Yeah.
that. We do not, so
Okay.
we are too big. We're technically
Okay,
a
that's what I'm curious.
medium-sized school district.
You have to have
However,
100 students.
that is I'll be honest, that was part of my communication for our rural schools with our federal agents. That could be devastating for the small schools if that funding does not come from the federal government.
Yeah,
It's a
okay.
big part of infrastructure and lots of different things that they do.
That's
You are
correct.
correct.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
RSA,
the small
Schools
rural,
Act.
yeah,
Okay.
there is a concern of that across, that we are advocating with our smaller schools, because that is again,
Sometimes we're
that's
considered
very
rural and
detrimental to
sometimes
them.
we're not, and so like, that's what I
Yeah.
don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
It's the really small, we're very small.
In
We're
Oregon-
big considering, I mean, they're talking less, I think it's less than 300 kids is what falls into
150
that.
is the ones that get hurt the
Yeah.
worst.
Yeah, in Oregon, we typically call them the remote rural
Yeah.
schools because they are mostly
Yeah.
east side, sort
Yeah.
of very much more
But
remote.
yes, you're
We
correct.
are considered rural, but we're not.
They had, last time that we had talked, they had paused it. I think there's been enough advocacy across the country that they're trying to reengage. Where that goes, I don't know. I think that's gonna be a big part of that.
I just talked to 2 board members from a very small school district in Eastern Oregon about 2 weeks ago. And yes, they're very worried about that.
Yeah.
And, when we only have 8 students graduate or 6 students, how do we say it? Your teachers to student, you have to really watch the ratio
Yeah.
in that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I understand it. Another thing I'd like to bring out is we don't have any news anymore, Chris. You go on the internet, you try to find stuff, you try to put it together, you see the Oregonian, and you see it. What's the chance of once a month, just putting a 1-page newsletter out to us? So we have an idea of what's going on. Doesn't mean you have to break everything. Are we gonna run into trouble? Something like that. Instead of coming to a meeting, you're calling 15 people to try to figure out what's going on. And we don't have a newspaper anymore. We don't have anything else. TV's gone. I'm just saying, not very expensive, but we're not talking a 6-page letter, but like a 1-page headline.
Emily, this would be her job, so let's
Hi.
hear her.
Royal, what were you thinking you wanted in the newsletter?
Just headline.
Just budget stuff
Yeah,
or?
or no, even what the school district's doing, nobody knows.
Couldn't we just
I mean,
enroll all of their email addresses on those same distribution lists we get, like Capital, Chronicle, blah, blah,
Yeah.
all that stuff? Because we get tons of news.
I'm not sure about that because that's membership.
Oh, it's
OSBA,
membership,
Like the
okay.
OSBA thing that we get.
Oh, I
is
didn't know
membership.
why we got that.
Put the budget committee as a member of what you're talking about.
I'm not sure, but I
But
can
you
check
can't
on
do
that. And the
That would
other
be a
thing
lot
that we can
easier.
do is I am doing a almost monthly community newsletter about like things that are happening in the school. I don't include a ton of budget stuff because I think
It's more.
And there's so much as uncertain as you're hearing here, oh, we might be able, I don't want to include that things and make somebody be upset about something that may not be an issue where you guys might be more.
I mean,
interested.
another thing, and maybe AI.
Email
can
it
do
or
this,
whatever.
We give these, Jen gives all these updates at every monthly board meeting.
Right.
And so
Are those
maybe we can
posted?
just,
Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
Post it on Income Watch, but
But if we just
can
did
have-
an
we
AI
have a
summary.
community newsletter that if you have an email, we can get you into that and definitely it would give you at least
Get
updates
a
on
hold
what's
of me, I
going
guess
on.
you must have my email.
Spirit,
Yeah.
I can forward you
Usually,
I know who
usually
has
we
it.
ask them,
I know who has
so if
it.
you're given permission, we'll move forward with that.
Yeah, so I can do that with everybody on the budget committee, and that way you guys will be getting some kind of news. And then if you have any questions, you can always send over to Paula or me, and I can. Add stuff to
I
it.
like that.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Thanks, Em.
So I heard newsletter and I was like, no.
So any other general questions about the things that are
I
keeping
have
us up all night?
one question on state grants.
Yes,
Am I understanding correctly, we did get the 455,
Yes,
but we were down 91,000.
they removed
They
91,000.
removed 90.
We had 91, they took it back a week before,
the 455 is a different grant,
correct?
and we got that, yeah.
We got that.
But we
you lost
had
the 91.
budgeted
We had
for
budgeted for,
The
500 and what's that?
Yeah. And how did they take
45,
grants away, or was that not a grant?
the legislature voted just not to fund that program.
Okay,
And it was near the end of the legislative session, so as they were finalizing the budget, they just said, yep, line that one out.
gotcha, okay.
And I did share when I went to go talk about the summer school program to please not do that again. Because it impacted a fair amount of us across the state. And they they were trying to make things neat,
Balance the budget,
so.
that went.
I thought that was grants and they'd taken it away and I thought, how do you?
Well, they
They
did.
did.
They had announced the grant. We had planned staffing. We had planned it as part of our overall summer program. And then
They only paid you 455.
Yes.
Yeah, they just didn't distribute it.
two separate grant programs.
Yes.
They kept one. And the 455,000, that's not every school district.
Oh, no.
That was like, we got a thing 2 years ago saying, oh, by the way, you're going to get this. Last year was 700,000, and we found out in June 5th, and it's like, how do you spend that much money in the summer when you, this year, we told them, give it sooner. Districts need to plan. So we had gotten notice of the 450,000. Yeah, the 91,000 was specific to, in our case, Independence Elementary. So we served kids from Independence Elementary from the other grant. Yeah.
And we have to apply for these grants all the time, right? We have a grant person in here that applies.
We do not have a grant writer, we all do it, I do it.
So I will tell you, most of these grants, Jen mentioned this additional literacy grant, that was a competitive grant. All districts could apply. These other grants are formula grants. Every district gets something for student investment account, high school success, early literacy. Those are just formula grants. You get a list saying, here's what every district gets. So it is very rare that we have to apply. We have to put in a plan for our grants, which is like an application, but it's not competitive. There are a couple of competitive ones and the state is doing more of that. And as far as writing other federal grants or other private grants, we don't have anyone to do that.
Or we do it.
Yeah.
So with the supplemental, we sort of put in, again, we were slated because of where we are to potentially get it, but we did have to still submit for it. Yeah. All right, let's move on to
All right.
revenue.
So,
and expenditures of revenue.
so basically then the rest of this is referencing the attachments that you have. And it looks very much like what the core board gets every month and what you get at the beginning of the budget process, just kind of an update on where we are. So we don't need to go line by line or anything. In the general fund, mentioned that again, all of our state school fund at this point is based on what every district thinks might happen. We submit estimates, how many students, how many special populations, how much property tax revenue are we gonna get to offset the formula? All of that's a guess that the districts make in May.
highly educated guess,
Yes.
because we have data that supports what we think it will be.
I have lots of spreadsheets, that I've recreated in the last years. So, and typically, there's not an adjustment again until December, when districts have the opportunity to say, oh, well, now we have a little bit better data on where we are. I want to make these adjustments to my projections. This year, they made a slight one in September, which was unusual, but it was really not material to us. It was material to one district because they added a charter school that they forgot to project for, but it was not material to us. So we are now operating on sort of that current projection, and we will get another more fine-tuned adjustment statewide in March. One of those factors I mentioned, property tax revenue. Again, we have to say in June, what do we think property taxes are going to be assessed at in November? And when we get our November projection, then I sit down and compare that to where we are, and have to say that pretty darn close. And for the first time, I've shared a page with you on the back of the revenue, on the back of, so it's page 2 in your packet, because it doesn't, it's actually numbered page 2. And that is actually the history of our property taxes. And this is the general fund only. This doesn't have anything to do with our obligations to repay debt on our general obligation funds. So in the general fund, what is the total assessed value of all the properties in the district? And remember, majority that's Polk County, but there's a tiny bit of Benton and Marion counties in there. So you can see that sort of assessed value growth rate. And then the district taxes that are imposed. And again, that's a number for the tax year 25 that was last year. So just kind of guessing. And our permanent rate, which is the rate that was assigned to us in Measure 5 and Measure 50 of those of you who get to say the motions every year, is 0.48834. And yet you can see sort of our effective permanent rate is slightly less than that, because there are properties that aren't taxed at full value in our community, including a lot of farmland, for example. So that's one thing I sit down and look at. How much did they actually impose? How much of that do we think we're going to collect? And how does that compare to our budget? So that's just one new piece of information. I probably won't bore you with that a lot, but it's a consideration. And then the state school fund revenue, again, now we're looking at the information on page 1, which is our revenue year to date. And this was as of October 31st, which was about 33% of the way through the year, roughly. So I look at what things were at a higher rate than 33% and what were much lower than 33%. And so just gave you those variances. A reminder, of course, property tax revenue comes in November. So at the end of October, we didn't have much, but that doesn't mean it won't come in just fine as I predicted. We'll probably end up a little bit above budget, just as you can see we did in the prior year. So that state school fund is greater than 33%. That is about 2/3 of the way down the page. The line number is R3101, state school fund general support. And if you look at the far right column, you'll see as of October 31st, that was at almost 42%. That's because we get 2 payments in June, no payments in or two payments in July, no payments in June. So we want to be way ahead of the 33%. Third of the way through the year. Because we're not gonna get it in June. We're not way ahead now, we'll be in trouble. Just another little bit of description of a couple other things that are quite a bit of variance. The other big one is in line 3103, just below the state school fund. And, or 31XX, two below, where we are at 0% collected. That's because we don't get any of that until May. That's our high cost disability grant. It's a one-time crapshoot of money, and we will find out what that is when it gets here. And beginning fund balance, our audit is pretty much complete, but so the number won't change much, but the sort of last itemized line item, the beginning fund balance shows we were just a little bit short, $7,000 short of what I guess we would have at the end of June. So revenue is coming in comfortably, I would say at this point, which is a good thing. And then expenses, and that, starting on page 3. Yeah.
Quick question.
Yeah.
On the taxes, you said they pay out in November.
Yeah.
Is that when the district gets the funds?
Yeah, so
So have we already received them? then?
we have now. I had, when I ran this October 31.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're coming in.
Are they on track?
I haven't checked actual dollar amounts, but the assessed value came in better than I had used for my budget projections. So even if collection goes down a little bit, we should be ahead of it.
So we don't get all of those in November, it's as people pay?
You know, it's funny. I mean, for those of us who spread our payments out over the year, we actually get about 95% of them. I mean, corporate, right? And
Anyone
people
with a
who wanna-
mortgage that has
And people who have
escrow
a
account,
mortgage, their mortgage
that all
company
gets
pays
paid in
in
November.
full, so we actually get most of it in November. So, yep. Other questions on that? So expenses, again, won't go at every single line, but really to point out a big change from last year. And that is that last year, our salaries were consistently running very low to budget because we could not hire people to fill positions. As a result, the line item that's about halfway through the page called 310 Instructional, Professional, and Technical Services was way over budget last year because we had to use substantive. That is turning around, and this year
We're pretty
we're
full.
pretty full. We do not have hardly any open
Yeah, a handful.
positions. And we are not relying on we don't currently have any temp
No,
employees in
I mean, correct. We have edge staff subs that come in, but from a temporary.
well, and I think we might have a agency school psychologist specialist, right? But we don't have classroom temps. So what we're seeing now is the salary budgets are gonna be closer to budget, and the instructional, professional, and technical services, while it likely is still to be slightly over budget, it's not going to be as significant as last year. Because you see in that 310 column last year where we budgeted 728,000 and ended up with $3.65 million in costs. So much more comfortable this year on that. And that's really big news. I guess the other one I pointed out where it was like, oh my gosh, you've spent all the budget. What in the world are you gonna do the rest of the year? And that's on page 4, about the detailed line item in the top called insurance and judgments, where we spent 99.8% of budget. That's because we prepay all of our insurance at the beginning of the year.
And we expect that to go up again next year.
As you can see, the cost has been rising considerably, and the cost increases are nuts, right? So, but at least I get that estimate usually right before we finalize budget, so, I'm pretty darn close, but not to worry that we're not anticipating that line item to go up much. So you will see, the line between the 700s and 800 that says subtotal prior to reserves. We are 30.6% on expenses. We're 33% of the way through the year as on this report, and at 30.6% expenses. I will tell you that we instituted something last year. I go out to each school on a monthly basis, sit down with the principal, the vice principal, the bookkeeper, and we go over their line item budgets. And Jen is a tremendous leader, because when she said to them, don't spend money, they're listening. They are doing a tremendous job of really controlling the costs that they can in their building.
And the conversation has been, if you need it and if kids need it, we buy it. If it's a want, we can't be in the want world right now, right? We just need to, if we need to give supplies and things to kids and staff to do their job. But once somebody wants a new chair. Yeah, I'd love new chairs in this building. These are fine, right? So those types of decisions where in the past, we may have been able to do something like that, where you're not, really the last couple of years, we have not. And I'm very thankful to all the buildings and all the departments, because everyone is doing a really good job of that, because that in the long run is gonna help us as we go into budget as well.
That's why we got a potluck instead of bringing in dinner
Yes.
tonight.
So I'm just curious on the salaries and filling the positions. Like, have we changed anything, or is the market in our favor for hiring people, and how competitive are we?
I think two things. We spent a lot last spring, because really the last 2 years, last year and even the year before, we just weren't filling positions. We have been very intentional really the last 2 years of getting out to job fairs, going even out of state at times. We're not doing that so much right now. Out of state travel is, unless it's tied to a grant, we're not doing. So we were very intentional. I think one of the other things is we did our own job fair. We put it together at the end of the year, I want to say May, June, and we probably had 60 people come through, and we had a fair amount of those positions that came to fruition applied. I also think we worked really hard on over the summer of, especially with special education and continuing to recruit. And if people applied, again, work through our process, do they meet the criteria? And we're really trying to move and get people where we could. So I think that's just that strategy, which we're continuing to do. We've already been, WU had a fall job fair. We were there passing out stuff, just making sure, again, depending on, we have everything from transportation to nutrition to, potential teaching positions that we'll have open in the spring, because we always do have that. Retirements or people move, and so that we're gonna have those types of vacancies, so.
We haven't done, we, for example, we will be negotiating both of our bargaining agreements this coming spring, so it wasn't that we had a brand new salary schedule or anything, but it's definitely layoffs in other districts are starting to roll, and the pool is bigger. So the only other thing in the general fund, after you just heard board members from Amy Jackson, the curriculum director, there is no money in a contingency to purchase curriculum this year. So that was the things that went by the wayside. We, as we're underspending on things as we get, to closer to the end of the year. I would rather spend, if we have some, on those sort of one-time things, right? Rather than saying, yes, you can hire 5 new people, let's buy that curriculum. But that will depend a lot again on what the legislature comes up with.
And prior to you all coming in, we had a update because we are going through curriculum adoption for 3 different areas. Again, some could financially need things, others may not, and I think that's gonna be part of the budget process. That will probably be part of our conversation with you of, you know, in this area, we've chosen, we have our materials work, and so we're not having to purchase here, but we may say in this area, we need to purchase, and so we'll have to work through that during the budget process. So we're about to embark on that for the next couple of months here.
The next report, that's page 5, is something that the board sees, because after the budget committee finishes, you approve a budget in a lump sum, and then it goes to the board, and they have to adopt it by appropriation level. And that means either by individual fund, or in some cases, funds that we lump together, but it has to be appropriated at the program level. And the program levels are listed at the bottom: instructional services, support services, community enterprise services, capital improvement, debt service contingencies, and unappropriated reserves. So this report actually shows what they've appropriated, what we have expended as of, in this case, October 31st, and the encumbrances. And encumbrances are planned expenses for the whole rest of the year. In the payroll world, which is 87% of our costs, those encumbrances are already calculated. We know what their rate of pay is, we know how many days their contract is, we know what we should be paying them, and how we will calculate the taxes and benefits on that pay through the end of the year. In non-salary, that's through purchase orders. Now, we're gonna spend $500 at Amazon this year, or Office Depot, we put in a purchase order and that shows up here. So this one is not by expense type, it's by program type. And if this is our spending authority, these are the dollars we are allowed to spend. And if we are going to spend over that, state law allows us to move things around without coming back to the budget committee. Some things we have to do a public hearing at least to say, hey, we're gonna move from this area to this area, or we got a huge new grant, and in order to, we can receive the money without telling y'all, but we cannot spend it without getting permission. So those adjustments kind of come if we need to at the end of the year. And I've mentioned here in sort of my analysis of that in your little overview, the one that we have had to watch the last several years is that food service fund, 250 food service. Right now, they have sort of what I would call discretionary spending of $100,000 on a $2.2 million budget. So not a lot, but their 2 largest costs are payroll and food. And those are all showing up in that encumbrance column. They know pretty well about how much they're gonna spend on food. So at this point, I'm not concerned about that. Have a little bit of heartburn about the very first line, which is the 1,000s instructional services in the general fund. That 235,000 of sort of discretionary spending, I'm watching carefully. But there's plenty in the next line item, and transferring that and forth again is a simple budgeting process that looks like we are. I will tell you right now, our utility costs, it's been certainly a nice warm winter so far, so
Thank God.
Our utility costs will come in on our budget, and I can move that money
60 degrees has been great.
Yes.
For a school district. I will say in that account too, we made it very clear over the last month, starting as of January 1, if there's any open position that comes, again, people move or we have resignations, right? That does happen within our system. We will have conversations with, again, departments, administrators of, do we need this position for the rest of the year? Again, if the answer is yes, and it's a need, I want to be clear about that, then we will move forward with that. I'll give an example. We lose a special ed, that will be replaced, right? We need to continue to keep fully funded or fully staffed at special education. So again, that process, we have been forewarning that all departments and buildings, and so if we do have something, then we'll have a review. They'll probably need to come in and explain why. Again, if we are feeling that it's not a need and we could probably get through the year, again, that's gonna help us in the overall end. But again, certain positions will be filled because of the need of what we need to do for our students.
And then the last page is a new report I've created. And that is something, we could spend well within our budgeted amount, but if those revenues aren't coming in and we're not paying attention to that, then we have a problem.
I have a question about this.
Yeah.
Okay. The June amount of, what is it, 6,895,000?
Yep.
Okay. Down at the bottom of the page, the footnotes.
Yes.
It says high BOC payments in June.
Yeah.
What's BOC?
Good question. I will explain that. But BOC is balance of contract. So most of our staff are their employment agreement with the district starts September 1 and goes through August 31. So that's a school year, a school calendar year, September 1 through August 31. So we take their predetermined payment amount. We say your employment agreement says you will work this many days at this rate. And we create an employment agreement for September 1st that calculates what that is. We divide that into 12 equal payments. So they get paid every month the same. Now, hourly people get an adjustment. If you work extra hours, you get paid extra. If you don't work those hours, it gets subtracted. But that equalized pay, where we plan, what are you going to get paid for the next 12 months? And we divide it up into 12 payments. But they only work September 1st through June. If somebody leaves us prior to June 30th, we pay off the balance of their contract. If they've worked all their work days, so your payment is based on 193 work days. You work all of them, but then you leave before August 31st, you're still owed that money because you worked your 193 days. So then we have to pay your contract. So we have some big lump sum payments when people leave or retire at the end of the fiscal year, because it's not the end of the school year. So we had several of those this year. We had some pretty significant ones. And for example, if it's any of us who had vacation pay, then we have to pay all that vacation payout as well. So those were some big cash hits in June of this year.
And I expect those to continue over the next, if we do have people that leave, that's just part of the process of, and again, some of that there was some flexibility about that in the past, especially tied to grants, that is no longer. So we really have made that move in the last probably 2 years, but more significantly it hit us this past year.
Yeah, good question.
Really good question.
I had another question.
Sure.
We just, the school district recently sold a piece of land for 400,000, that's what I.
We're in the process, that is not,
Yeah, we have a piece of land for sale. We haven't,
Well,
we sold 2 pieces 3 years ago. We haven't sold anything this year.
well, I thought I read that it was sold, and then I was,
We made an agreement.
yeah, we made an agreement to sell, but
But it hasn't closed
It
It
yet.
has not
yeah,
closed.
okay. Where would that go then? Because that's not part of the budget process.
Great question.
So where
What
would
we
it?
did a couple of years ago, we sold our rural schools. We sold Oak Grove Elementary and we sold Eola Elementary. The board then gets to decide how to allocate that revenue.
Okay.
In that case, they voted to put both of those into our capital improvement fund. So that money it would have been available to match a bond, for example, right? To tell the community, hey, here's a bond and that's how much your taxes would increase. But here's another 700,000 we have to be able to spend on that, right? So they could decide, sure, let it be operating money if they wanted to. I don't think they would. But in that case, put it in our capital improvement fund to be able to be used for other big ticket items.
But I want to go back to that, the agreement that we have with the potential buyer, I'll just say we've got a pretty long way until that comes to fruition, over a year. So I just want to be crystal clear that that's not just a sale and move on like the other one. There is a longer process because of where that land is located.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
So anyway, this cash balance, we're keeping an eye on it because we are on a cash basis. So this literally, whatever money we have in the bank is all, I don't have like an accounts receivable saying, oh, I expect to get this much more. I mean, I know I'll get more in the state school fund, we know, but we are a cash basis. So in order to track it ourselves, in order to be really transparent, it's really important to track this. Like, how's the cash coming in? Because if it's really changed how it's coming in, we got to change how we're doling it out.
Right.
And there are many stories all around us of districts that unfortunately weren't doing that and have had some real struggles. So this is a new report. We'll be giving this to the board. But I think the interesting thing that this does for me even is when you look at those cash balances, first of all, you see, if you look right here for October, the end of October, but if you look back every year at the end of October and then the end of November, that's where you see our property tax collection come in. So you can tell what a difference it makes when those property taxes hit.
Right.
Now, this report is all funds. So that's property taxes in the general fund plus the property taxes that we get for the bonds. But you can see it's significant, right? And there are districts that really have to wait for that property tax money to hit because they can be pretty close to the edge by then. We are not typically in that position. But you can also see, if you look down at the very bottom, it's tight now, right?
Yes.
When I used to be able to carry forward 11.6 million or 10.2 million or 12.2 million, and 2021 through 23, 24 even was COVID money. So we expected those numbers to be higher, but 18, 19, we didn't have that extra federal boost of money. We didn't even have the state, high school or student investment account money in 2018, 19. And we were carrying $11 million for it.
But our enrollment was also almost 3,200.
And that's where it shows. Our enrollment at that point was 32.
And I want to be clear, our enrollment trajectory is following exactly what Flow Analytics gave us. So I want to be clear that we projected this, and it is falling into that category. We are going to see a little bit before, I think it's 2028, I believe, where it would start to go back up again. And again, that can vary because of birth rates, right? All of those pieces are still mitigating factors as we look at that. So this is, unfortunately, we are in a lull through 20, again, I would say low flat, from that perspective and, looking at those pieces. Questions?
Question, everyone knows that we are handicapped with our taxes because of all the non-tax property we have in our district. We're set by ourselves, basically. A lot of districts don't have it, but isn't it 50% now is a Monmouth alone that is non-taxable?
So we haven't gotten, Monmouth once asked the county assessor, can you tell us, because of Western Oregon University and schools and churches and things like that,
BCL.
how much of the actual property value in Monmouth is taxed? And they, at that point, there was an estimate at one point, it was around 50%. We haven't asked for an update, but if you think about it, Western Oregon is certainly a large tract of land that doesn't pay any property taxes. And so we are constrained, right? And some districts don't have a lot of rural property, we do. So those, again, those taxes are, those properties aren't taxed at the full rate. They don't yield a lot of kids either. So. And neither does Western Oregon, because we're not, providing services over there, but the fire district gets it worse than we do because they, and the city, because they provide services to the university and don't get property tax revenue from it.
And our growth rate is up, but right now there's no building permits to speak of. Not
like
it was for 5 years. Now we're counting that.
We're smaller sections.
Although, for example, the Riddle Road apartments were a big chunk for us in Monmouth, those going in, because it's not the property taxes even as much as our construction excise tax, right? So when we have building permits down, we aren't getting that construction excise tax, which fills up the coffers of our capital improvement fund. So spending that down quite considerably to do the turf project it's not filling up very fast. Anyway, those are the things we're doing. The things that are making us sick to our stomachs. The roller coaster is real.
And we'll keep you up to date. Like, again, I know that Cece and Paul are sending updates as we hear things, we will continue to share with you. Again, we're just at this point, we're about a third of the way through the year. Good, just a check-in point with all of you. I think one of the things that we said we would do last year as we ended to just make sure we have that update. And yep, again, sending you information, but making sure that we also had some time with you to say, here's where we are as we move forward. And
because we are getting ready for budget season, and before you know it, we'll be trying to do this work again. Remember, this coming year will be the second half of a biennium, so we don't anticipate major changes. We kind of know where we'll be revenue-wise unless the legislature has to do a lot more.
I would tell you, pay attention to the February revenue forecast. Again, as C shared, when we got the December forecast, again, we were being told anything from, Jen, it's gonna be 300 in the hole, to we're gonna be flat, or maybe we might be up.
300 million.
300 million, did I say,
You just said 300.
Oh, 300 million, sorry. I think in millions, sorry.
The
300 million, the state, their revenue, we saw a swing of less 300 million, but maybe up 100, right? So that's a big range when we're looking at that. So I think the last revenue forecast is going to lead into the actual session and where we will end up.
And even though it wasn't worse, it's still a hole. There's still a deficit.
We're still in a
That
deficit.
the legislature.
It's just 600 million, not 900 million.
Okay.
So a big hole, but $300 million left.
And less, as Jen mentioned, and both the both houses of Congress are scheduled to adjourn this week, Thursday and Friday, so this budget that they're gonna pass before Christmas probably isn't gonna happen. But it's going to be a huge concern, and, you know, the state and education in general has a lot of lobbyists back there keeping us well informed.
Sees this, last page 6,
Yep.
cash balance comparison. I really like this chart
I knew you would.
and,
Pete the banker.
I know, right? But I was just wondering, once you get the November numbers shored up,
Yeah.
I'd love to see the updated ones. So
Yeah,
to see once the coffers are
I'm
refilled.
reporting this one to the board every 3 months, probably quarterly, so yeah, I will send that out to everybody when I get it on the 12/31, actually.
Yeah, thank you.
12/31 and send it, and basically that's what I'll do, whenever I prepare whatever, each month I have some kind of financial report for the board, and I prepare the narrative. I'm just gonna send that out to the budget committee separately, so you don't have to go pull the board agenda up and look and see my part. You can just get these reports, and they will look like this, but there'll be a narrative, and my phone number, so call me when it's like, I don't even remember what you said about this, what am I supposed to look at?
No, that would be great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I do usually try to go into the board reports and look, but it would be really nice just to have a few of them.
Yeah, we'll just, when I sent, because I sent it to Emily to include in the board packet, they'll get it, in their consent agenda, I can just send it to everybody. And, we'll just we may, you know, I'll send that out, especially after December, I'll send an update. And then budget process will proceed as normal. We'll do an April meeting and a May meeting. Because again, the revenue will be pretty much set unless there's drastic changes.
If we see drastic, I may pull you all back.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
right.
if we see things in February, March, and we feel like, again, we have a PLC with the board, if that's something that we need to pull you back in, just to sort of give a front end of, hey, here's what we're gonna be looking at as we go into this process, we will pull you back in.
I think the other important thing to note, I mentioned, we will be in bargaining with both our teachers and our classified folks this year.
Contracting.
Contract negotiations, so as we prepare budget, we may not know what the salaries are looking like, so that's an unknown that could be a little scary. And the following year is when our PERS rates will skyrocket, just FYI, because we will have our PERS bond that contributes some money to our unfunded actuarial liability will be expired.
Well, I appreciate bringing us back in. It's nice to
Yeah, thanks for coming, you guys.
in-person meeting, like,
We
partway
appreciate it.
through.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Not everyone wants to spend it December.
Well, it gives it, you know, instead of having a big deal in April, it kind of gives you, well, let's see, we're gonna have to be looking for this and maybe not. So we'll have a better, I think, with this, we have a better idea when we sit down.
Yep.
Yeah, I
Yep.
agree.
And our goal would be is if there's any drastic, again, as we said, we're gonna keep sending you this, and if there's anything,
Well, yeah, because everything is.
yes.
We'll
Yeah.
get $50 an hour for that, then we can assume.
That's why we sold that land.
Well, we appreciate your time and thank you for, again, spending about an hour and 15 with us.
Thank you.
We thank you for that. Board, we've got about 20 minutes if that left in and then I promise we'll get you out of here.
And the board had a potluck, and it looks like there's some little treats left over there. If anybody wants.
And a whole bunch of chocolates. The
There's
brownies are good.
I'm gonna get some chocolates.
I don't know,
Very
but
good chocolates.
I like
No, I
a
don't know who
chewy
that is.
brownie.
Oh,
It's very
can I
good.
get one of those?
No, we look at the phone or whatever. That's the deal.
Emily's?
Is that the,
Emily was
Oh, no,
sitting
no,
over there
that is
earlier.
a hotspot.
Oh,
that's what I mean, that's for the.
No,
I
that's
thought that's.
Hotspot.
the owl.
Okay, shit, thank you.
Oh, I thought he was talking about the
Yeah,
black
yeah,
thing
I
on the table.
Can't get out of the chair, I'm at that.
No,
I gotta hike that
One
chair
of
up,
the pink ones.
Royal, you're sitting a little low to the ground.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Have a happy holiday.
Thank you. You guys as well.
Nice meeting you.
Nice to meet you too. Take care.
Bye-bye, it's March.
No, the budget
Every
committee
day's a
meets.
great day.
If we,
That's what I look at.
Okay, for some reason I thought it was earlier.
It's still alive.
I have a neighbor, I have a neighbor that always says, I'll say, good morning, he'll be out on his porch and, how are you doing? And he's like, still breathing. That's good.
That's a low bar.
Bye, thank you.
Thank you all.
Night.
Let's finish your board meeting.
Did you turn off the, I don't want to start with that session.
I was gonna make it.
Yes, thanks, Susie. Appreciate it.
That's why you're cute.
When you bring us back into executive session.
Please
first.
No, please do bring us back in and then I'll stop for a minute.
So, I'm sorry, I can never remember. So we're just recess and then going into recess into executive session. Okay, so now we're recessing into executive session.